are now listening to United 96 Podcast on the RFK Refugees Podcast Network.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here. I am back. John is back. We finally have a full, well, I guess we did one live show. We did one live show together. So, but it feels like we're back to form. The sickness has hopefully passed all of us at this point. Unfortunately, producer Brian's not here, so the gang is not all back. 100%.
He does not have COVID though. So the show did not give him COVID last week, just to be clear.
There was no transmission through Zoom of COVID.
It's the new variant. Back. The new variant is on the internet. That's the one that's hard to beat.
Well, I'll start this week with my weekend, John, which was full of just being in this small cottage in Lynchburg. I planned to go to the DC United game against Nashville. That was probably like maybe the one good thing. Like
it was that good for you, man.
COVID did, because the game would have been terrible. Would not have been a fun game to bring new people to. We're trying to get a game. I need to reach out to my ticket. My ticket rep supposedly says. I reached out to my ticket rep, so I'm dropping this now. I was going to wait until I got confirmation because he has not responded yet, but he has said that he will basically give me 4 tickets to another game of my choosing. So, cool move from the DC United ticket rep. I did sell my tickets. I got at least some of my money back, not all of my money back, but a cool move from him. If they follow through, now they got to follow through. So. But John, how was your weekend? I hope you at least enjoyed the game.
Oh, well, define enjoy. I certainly made money on the day, and I think that's going to be my plan to enjoy the rest of the DC United season. I think that's the only way I'm going to. But no, I was, I have, as eagle eye listeners of the show will know, I have had COVID and I've had other stuff going on where I haven't really left the house in a month and a week. So it was nice to get out in the world and see people and realize that there's a sun, even though it is hot, which was another thing you got to escape on Saturday. It was pretty molten hot. But it was nice to remember that life continues apace, even if you are not, even if you're not in it. So yeah, I think I can say it was overall a good weekend because I got to go out and live. But the game, good Lord, I can't wait to talk about this one.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. But before we get into the game, we do have some other news. I just wanted to drop that it does feel a little weird focusing on soccer right now with quite frankly, everything that has been going on that is both terrible, awful, and bad. There are people in our communities who are under threat in multiple ways from what has just happened with the Supreme Court, what's been happening with certain extremist factions in our political system that have decided that attacking children or going after children at readings in their elementary school is something that they want to do. So it's a very scary time. And I think it's important to recognize those things. This is a sports podcast. This is an escape, I think, for both you and I, John, even though we are both people who are of a gender and a race that are certainly the least impacted. But I think it's important to recognize those things because we have wives, we have daughters who are going to be impacted, particularly by what happened last weekend. And I think it's important that we recognize that this is not politics when it comes to tax policy or for supporting whichever candidate. This is real things that are impacting people's lives in an incredibly negative way. And I think it's important for people to realize that and to stand up and to not just stick to whatever avenue you are, despite what some people might believe, and for supporters to also stand up. And there have been supporters who have stood up in spite of what some people might think they should be doing, and how apparently soccer is more important than what has been going on currently in this country. So I think it's worth calling that out. And, hats off to 202 Unique. I think they've been doing an excellent job driving a lot of the messaging. And I heard recently, I think one of the members says he doesn't feel safe in the supporter section, which is incredibly sad. These things have real impacts, whether they want to think them or not. And I think it's important to recognize that people in this game should all be loved and should be welcomed. So I do hope that things change for the better. Certainly.
And I, I, as Ted says, I'm loath to not have this be the escape. And I'm also, I used to hate Don't Get Mad Vote, and I still kind of hate it. But also, politics is going to be very bad for a very, very long time. Like, I don't think people have processed that yet. I think people are still sort of in the stunned mode, and I think you should just pay attention to the fact, if you're happy about this, you're about to be this is your time, man. It's about to all go your way. So if that's you, that's great. This morning there was a breaking news alert for the Supreme Court. I was like, I'm not gonna like this.
There's never anything for the Supreme Court that's breaking.
Certainly not now. But as a person who has, and that's as far as I'm going to go with it, as a person who has at times been very frustrated with electoral politics and want to leave it behind, and as a person also who at the same time has voted in every single election every time since he's been 18 for dog catcher, for the primary for dog catcher, I'm voting. That's what I do. I would get and understand people's, rather desire to burn it down or rather desire to do other stuff. And that's fine. You should do all those other things. But I cannot tell you how much more important it is now to vote in local elections, because the devolution of politics to the local level is what this Supreme Court is clearly, that's seemingly what they want to intend. And one side has really neglected state and local politics for the last, and Ted would know, he's worked in it, but for quite some time, for I would say probably 2 decades, and you can see the change in the way things have gone. It matters a whole bunch. So if you're mad about the last week, and once you get past the stage of sort of shell shock, that is really where it would pay dividends to focus your energy. It's productive energy. That's all. Just I don't want to be the guy. It's a meme right now to say, go vote. Don't give $5 to Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't need it.
Yeah.
But do find out who your local people are running and what they're about. And if there isn't someone that's about what you're about, then you can run. The bar is pretty low for local elections. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. As someone who did work in local, this is the last thing I'm going to say about this. Someone who did work in local politics, I know that it's like literally one of the only like maybe non-justifiable things. I understand people that want to burn it down. That's one of the more like justifiable things that you
sure.
And you got to do it, and it stinks. You wish there was another. You certainly do wish there was another option, and I wish there was more of a choice than some of what I will be faced with voting for in November. But it's sad.
Sometimes you get a bargain, right, Ted? Like sometimes you don't get what you want. Think about being a DC United fan. So it's sort of like the 2-party system. Like you can give up, or you can at least stay engaged and hope that maybe you'll get to where you want someday.
Yeah, and you just hope, and what soccer surely doesn't matter that. But let's get back into talking a little bit.
In the show notes, we'll say if you don't want to hear politics, start with us at the 9-minute mark.
9-minute mark. There we go. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's start talking DC. Let's start before we get into the bad, as always, which is always the game lately. Let's talk about some of the good things that happened. First and foremost, DC United officially is getting the 2023 All Star game.
Hey.
A couple news and notes about that. We don't know the opponent. We do know it'll be happening. I am, for one, pretty excited about that. I'm definitely going to. I will say as long as tickets, I mean, they might get really expensive.
Yeah, they're going to get. It's going.
Yeah, they're going to get expensive. I'm hopeful like MLS is still in that kind of market where it's like, maybe it's like $100 for like a supporter seat ticket, but like that's like around with the prices. I mean, for me, am I asking like for the experience of going, for experiencing things like I would probably go for the weekend. I would want to see the skills competition. I would want to see the like. There's tons of events I'm sure they're going to have out there. I'm excited about this. That was, I think, RJ Olson's question. Are you excited about DC hosting the MLS All Star game? I am incredibly excited about it. I think it's going to be a fun event. I'll be curious to see who they're playing or who we're going up against. Are we going to do Liga MX again? Are we going to do something else? Who knows? John, what are you hoping for? Are you hoping for more Liga MX? Or are you hoping for something different?
I I think that's fine. I don't think either. I don't know. I don't think the opponent is what makes the All-Star game not super appealing. I think to me, you're excited, and I'm glad you're excited, and I'll probably go because it's here, as long as the prices are not insane. And I don't have to pay for a hotel if I want to stay for the whole weekend, so that's a benefit. You would not want to. I'll offer you this bed that's right to my right, but I don't think you'll want to do the 40 miles each way each day. I don't think it's the opponent. I think it's just soccer is a game that it's so team focused that you want a whole bunch more time to create some cohesiveness around the team. Like individual playmaking is one thing, but I feel like you don't get a good showcase. Baseball works because it's pretty individualized. Basketball works in the first half because it's basically just like they just let people score, and it's like score the best, however way you want, and then the last quarter we'll play defense. So that's always been the struggle, right? That's for me. That's the games are not super visually pleasing, and then two, I wonder. Do you know, is there a requirement like in other sports that the host team gets a player, like a default player, like maybe commissioner's choice?
I think usually there is a commissioner's choice. I think I know Freddie Adu was once the commissioner's choice for the league. I mean, I imagine if DC is left off the ballot, there will be a push to have a Taxi Funtas or a Jillian Gressel. Those are the only two players at this point I could see going to the All-Star game based on the squad, but...
Telling Taxi he is playing in this game will be, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like, at least he'll get a year to like see that it exists and be like, what's happening? What do we do here? So
he has to know it exists. I mean,
maybe not. How much do you imagine that the Greek national team players who play in Austria get to like get the nitty gritty of the MLS Midsummer Classic? I don't know. Anyway, I mean, it's fine. It's good. I'm glad. I wish it were. And I know that it won't be. They already actually said it won't be. It would be very cool if it was thrown in with a season ticket holder, even at like a discount. I understand that it's not a DC United game. All these things I get. I also didn't want the tickets to the weird Capital Classic. Like, keep all those. Like, can I throw those to you in a bucket of I don't care, and then you give me back one All-Star game ticket? That would be cool. But that's just picking nits. Not a huge deal.
It's if DC had a 30,000-40,000 seat stadium, I would say that would increase the likelihood that it would be included because of the size of DC stadium and the need, I guess, for them to maximize the profit. And I know a lot of people hate that. It is what it is. It is a business at the end of the day. So I would understand it if I was a season ticket holder, and I would still try to look to go.
I am getting a tin though, Ted. So they're sending me a tin.
Oh, there you go.
There is a gift, and it is a tin, so I'm very excited for my tin.
At least it is a season ticket gift. I'd heard about that, so that's very good for those people. My hope for the opponent. See, I would here's a crazy idea, and I don't know how much I want to. Everybody's talking about like an NWSL All Star game. Mm-hmm. What if they did MLS and NWSL All Stars, and then they split them up into like you play co-ed teams.
Yep.
And then like you get to draft and you have to have a certain number of like that to me would be cool. I understand there'd be a lot of people that might be, think, well, the NWSL should have their own All-Star game. That's true. But that would be that I would watch. That would be fun and unique. Like watching Trinity Rodman. Yeah,
I've seen that as like a charity game. They've done a lot of co-ed charity games in the last couple seasons. I think that would be really cool. And then it really Ted, I think that's a good idea. We should put that out in the world. I like that. Yeah. I'm sure once we put it on Twitter, we will be told why it's horrible.
I mean, I think it could be a fun, enjoyable like game to watch. I don't think it'll happen. I think we'll probably see. My guess is we're going to see Liga MX All Stars again. One thing I think that would be cool to add is to do that and then do a draft format with that. I think that would be fun. I think it would help. Maybe learn some of the players. Maybe you pick like a captain, sort of like how the NHL does it. I think that would be fun. Just kind of mixing it up a bit. I think with the All-Star game, a lot of people, I think, try to derive seriousness out of it. They try to derive, like, I need to have something out of this.
Where are my stakes?
Sometimes things can just be fun, enjoyable. Like the skills competition is incredible amounts of fun to watch. That's like the most fun thing to watch of the whole All-Star game.
Has there been... I think it's probably going to be one of the wish we had a researcher on staff here. Do you know of any injuries that have happened in MLS All Star games? Do you remember? Now, there are very high-profile ones in the MLB All Star game, notably where Pete Rose ended a catcher's career in an All Star game. But I don't believe, because that is my concern. And that used to be sort of like the DC United fan base. Like, I don't want to vote for DC United players in a midweek game. But by the way, from a scheduling perspective, could they not shut the league down for an entire calendar week where they have no games the weekend before, no games the weekend after? Like, they could do that, and then you take away that concern completely. But I don't know if they're gonna.
Yeah, here they got the Leagues Cup coming in the middle of August, so who knows if they could do that. I will say, like, the amount of, like, there's so many subs. Players are out there 20, 30 minutes. They're not playing, even in some of those friendly, certainly the players who are on the, European teams that come out of here don't want to get injured or hurt. So I think it's a relatively, in my opinion.
Yes, there has been one. I'm sorry, I Googled very quickly. Jameson Olave, Greg Garza, fans were injured because of fireworks. So there's apparently quite a few. But anyway, I think
it's an incredibly weird thing. I remember there was one time I think Ben Olsen left. I think it was some Vancouver defender out there too long, because I think maybe there was an injury and he had to leave him out there, and he's like, yeah, they're not gonna be too happy with that. I only told him I play him like a half, and I ended up playing him the full game.
Do you remember Jameson Olave?
Yeah, I do.
He was a big dude. He reminds me of you remember Alex from Chelsea was another center back defender that was just like a mountain of a bald man. And I remember Olave. Let's talk about DC United. So I don't think it's in the notes. We can confirm too that Edison Flores is no longer a DC United player.
Yes.
And in fact, go ahead. You could say it. You can tell them what's happened this week.
Oh, he missed the penalty, and I guess it's like the Cup of Champ. I don't know. It's like between Cruz Azul and Atlas. Not a like serious competition. More of a Community Shield type of game. But
I will tell you that Romelu Lukaku's first Chelsea stint began to fall apart when he missed a penalty in the Community Shield. So not for nothing, it's happened before. Things can happen, but just bad vibes for Edison. Unfortunately, that was the first impression he gets to make on the home fans. But he's gone. The DP spot is open. We have one DP on the roster. His name is Taxi Fontas, and he is not very smiley this weekend, but justifiably so. But we replace him in a way with a player.
Yeah, Martin Rodriguez, which you guys talked about a little bit last week, so I won't. But that move was now made official. That was not gone away from a medical issue or something, or who knows, a contract issue. Who knows what happened, honestly, with the whole. I do think, I don't know. Well, we won't talk about Sonny Kittle and that whole thing. You guys already went into it. I think maybe it's worth talking a little bit about. But let's talk. Martin Rodriguez has signed. They apparently did beat out one of the biggest sides in Chile, wanted to sign him and wanted to bring him back, and apparently DC beat him out. So I think that is maybe a little bit significant. Colo Colo are a big side in Chile. Mm-hmm. Chile's a big soccering town, so the fact that MLS kind of beats these types of teams out probably wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. So he won't start playing until July. When the window opens. We mixed sort of reviews. They say he's, got some skill dribbling on the ball, progression. He's able to move the ball up, but he does have some sort of
end product
crosses.
Issues.
Yeah, end product issues. I will say I'm a little bit encouraged with some of what I've seen, and I think that if he plays the role of just honestly just giving us some sort of person who can dribble, because that's what DC's and we'll get into it when we talk about the game. That's what DC's lacking in droves, is just somebody who's able just to take some guys on. And when you have somebody who can at least do that type of thing, or at least attempt that type of thing, sometimes you have success. And we'll get into that in a minute. But any sort of changes, you've had kind of a week, maybe you've seen some more videos, some more analysis of Martin Rodriguez, any changes about him? We should correct something on the show. He did play for a first division Turkey side that got relegated.
That became a second division circuit. He also, if you look at FootMob, for whatever that's worth, for some people it's something, and for some people it's not, he was like their joint best player. So on a relegated team, he was decent. I think he had like a 7.1 average for the season. So who knows?
People talked about his goal production. I'm like, well, yeah, that's like a third of their goals this entire season because they were terrible.
Similar to Henry,
yeah.
Similar to Henry when they were looking at him, where he was scoring goals for a team that didn't score a lot of goals. So, I think it's extremely hard to port over league to league success, and all you can really do is are the recruiters happy with his skill set, and they think it's going to mesh with what we need. We need everything. We need a lot of things right now. So I think that was the big. People are getting upset about, either where he plays or. We need so many things right now. If Ted and I were to do a redraft, fantasy football manager redraft of this entire team, like we would be starting with not too many players. We would probably have lots of available spots. So let's see this a minimal cost. I think $300,000 as a transfer fee. That's nothing. That's to keep in mind that's $700,000 less in a transfer fee than we paid for Nigel Robertha. So just keep that in mind. He's not a DP. We'll see how he goes, and he will be eligible potentially to start July 7th, but he's got to get his visa sorted. I don't know where he is in that process. So
yeah, so I mean, hopefully that process is moving along and he gets it sorted pretty quickly. Really, do want to ask you something here. Quick question before we get into the game.
Yeah.
Yes or no? DC fill the 2 DP slots this window?
I don't think they do. I think they
fill any. Do you think they fill one?
I think they fill one. I think they fill one in an effort to not finish last place and to sell some tickets because it's starting to get done. Now, did they have a sellout in this game we're about to talk about? I guess. Theoretically, yes. It was very crowded. I would not have been surprised if you told me that was an actual sellout. It was very packed. But I don't think that's going to be the norm from here on out. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe their ticket people are extremely good at polishing a turd.
I think a lot of people were kind of talking about how they weren't sort of surprised this was a sellout. It was also a 5:00 game, so it's a game you can sort of bring your kids to. Most of these games are going to be 7, 8 o'clock.
Correct.
It's not usual conducive to bringing like small kids and
your
families.
kid would unfortunately melt into a pile of goo if you brought them to this game and were sitting on my side of the field, but sleep perspective wise, that'd have been fine. They'd have been real sleepy after that day.
And who knows? Maybe they'll have a sellout at the Ted Lasso night coming up on July 13th.
Should I dress up, Ted?
I think you should.
All right, maybe I should. I remember I should.
Do your coach beard.
Yeah,
do your coach beard. Do the coach beard. All right, let's get into let's dive into the badness that was this game. I did want to add first. Actually, I wanted to go back a little bit. I want to say I think there is a universe where they do not fill that designated player spot, especially if any of the DP slots. And almost I'm like, do we even want them to before we even know if this team is going to have a coach? I don't know. Maybe you punt this whole year. They do have a lot of contracts. I think Birnbaum's contract is up. A lot of players. I believe Bill Hamid's contract is up. Yep. So they're going to have some roster space. This is going to be a rebuild. I think they will have a decent enough core that you could come in and basically tell a coach, hey, you got a blank canvas. What do you need? Let's figure out what we can do. I don't know. That's certainly something I think that could happen. And
you tweeted that or wherever you put that out, and I was like, there's something there. Now, I would also prefer that we have a new, or at least half of a new general manager to do that full rebuild. It will be somewhat painful for me to say, let's start all over again, and then we've got to wait another 3 years for this to play out again before we can again then judge how this actually went to then actually decide if we need to make any changes, So I feel like I'd almost rather them say, all right, you got one more chance. Spend as much of my money as you want, and I need results by X date. And if you don't, then we're moving on. But if we go from start again, that date is like down the road too much.
Yeah, and we'll get in that too. We'll get in that a little bit. I think with some of the listener questions.
Yep.
Let's talk this DC Nashville game.
Before we get started, I want to say I missed the thing we're about to talk about. The lines were very long around the gate, and we had to go all the way around the stadium to find another gate. And it was like the kickoff was while we were in line. I was like, Hani Mukhtar is going to score, and Taxi Funtas is going to get injury subbed in the first 6 minutes. And I didn't get all of that right, but I think I got some of that right. I don't know.
Well, Henry Mukhtar didn't score. It was Lovitz, I believe, that scored.
Well, Mukhtar scored though eventually, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He
All right.
scored.
Well, anytime goal scorer was my bet apparently.
Yes, but let's talk the game. So Ashton goes in this game. So after the wonderful game that was the Chicago game, what does Chad Ashton decide to do? Basically roll out the same type of formation and say, hey, let's try. You know that thing that really didn't work last week against one of the worst teams in the league? Hey, let's do that again. And he did, and it was bad. It's this to me, I think, has undersold that. I don't want to say he doesn't know what he's doing, but I think he's trying to do something that is just not what you need to be and not what this team has been built to do. Number one, that's been the biggest disappointment here, I guess, from here. I thought Chad was just going to come in, not really try to change anything, and was just going to go out, and maybe he feels like he's forced into it with the lineup he has. But at this point, man, like, throw out keep the 3-4-3, keep the press, because once he did shift to it, it looked better. It looks certainly better than what it is, and right now that's really all I'm hoping for right now, is just that something at least entertaining and better than what we're seeing. Because these last two games have just been awful and terrible, and this was the same. It was like he tried the exact same thing. 3 defensive midfielders. This time replacing Skundrith with Knaus. And Knaus is normally a pretty good player, but it just still didn't work. The team looked just very flat. Like they were gonna, and he should have known too. I'm like, dude, you're going to be given the ball. That's how Nashville play. They sit back and they hit you on the break. And it was literally like everybody in the stadium knew that was going to be the plan. Everybody in the stadium knew that wasn't going to work except for Chad Ashton. I have to think. I mean, this was a baffling lineup choice. Absolutely baffling.
He is bereft of midfield attacking players on his bench aside from Jackson Hopkins. Was he available or was he already on international duty at that time?
He's over with the U20s right now. Yeah. He's a replacement for Obel, I think, Vargas, who got injured. So he's over in El Salvador right now.
So that's the only thing I would say. I hate to make excuses for these lineup choices. I am tired of the formation as well. But that is one thing I was thinking of. 3 defensive midfielders in any configuration is not what you want to do. You're not going against Nashville. Is not the world beater. They're not LAFC. They're not scoring 1 million goals a game. So it's not like you've got to just turtle shell to protect yourself to not get completely annihilated. And that happened anyway, regardless of your defensive setup.
Yeah, it was just again, it was like watching this team pass the ball around, move it around, and then they try to make a move and they run out of ideas, and then the ball gets picked off, and then it's Nashville going on the break, and then Nashville gets some sustained possession in the counter, and then really they get peppered by. Now you can see the goal coming. I mean, I think the goal came really early in the game. Let's talk about the goal. I actually thought it came off a set piece. It did not come off, I think, directly a set piece. I guess the one positive here is I don't think there were any set piece goals that DC gave up this year. So this game, so positive on that front, I guess. But it's a ball over the top. Gressel and Birnbaum are for some reason going for it at the same time. I mean, it's really just like the same like comedy of errors we've seen from this team defensively, which is why I'm like, why are you even bothering with the defensive lineup? Like the best defense right now is for DC to somehow develop an offense at this point. That's literally the best shot we have at anything at this point, because this team is not gonna put up like a shutout against any team at this point. And I mean, but it was really just it. Like, I don't want to blame, I guess, Gressel too much. I thought Birnbaum he had his worst game in my mind. I thought he was second goal. We'll get to that in a minute. But I mean, again, it was just a comedy of errors. Ball falls to Lovitz. Romo gets beat near post. You can't do that. I think I looked at like the expected goals of that was like 0.05 on that shot. So that's just bad. Terrible. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that goal, or is it just...
Nope, I don't. I think, and the best chance for DC United is been described by 1 million people, apparently, as it was being so visually comical about screwing himself into the ground. I think is the phrase that everyone uses for this.
Yeah. So I mean, and I'm trying to remember when that. I think that did happen. That happened when they were down 1-0, I believe.
Yep, it did, because I didn't see it.
It was Andy Dahar basically getting as close as you can to developing something. Does some nice moves, gets some nice quick 1-2 passing, I think with Funtas or somebody on the field, has an opportunity where he could potentially slide the goal. But right now with how the season is going, what does he do? Of course he whiffs at it and falls to the ground. And that was almost just like a perfect summation of DC United's season at this point. It's just like there was a lot of hope and a lot of chances, and it just kind of all just falls apart. And then I think I'm not sure when the second goal came close to the end of and I think that was the real. I think if they go into halftime, they make their adjustments, maybe we see a different result. But it was Hani Mukhtar. I believe Taxi Funtas gets dispossessed. Again, he's trying to go back, trying to make something happen because right now there's nothing happening in the midfield. So I can't say I really blame him all that much in that moment, but makes a kind of a bad touch. I think it's stolen by Mukhtar. Mukhtar sort of plays it to McCarty. McCarty maybe makes a couple of the passes, runs in between then, but runs down the field, lays the ball off to Mukhtar, who's wide open. Not much Romo can do about that. Bad defensive breakdown. I thought Birnbaum in particular looked really lost. Personally, you want to talk about a defender who actually I think had played decently in this game and actually made some pretty big tackles was Brendan Heinz-Eyck.
Oh.
I would say Brendan Heinz-Eyck. Brendan Heinz-Eyck made a couple really nice tackles. First half. We'll get to Donovan Pines maybe in the second half.
I in the stands I said I can't believe Dax McCarty is celebrating against his former team like that. No class.
Well, I don't think he fondly remembers his.
No, I thought it was the joke. That's the joke.
Yes, but do you not think at that point? At that point, the game is. At that point, the game is over.
Yep.
Basically, Chad tries to try to get this team back. He subs in Nigel Robertha for Safane Jafal. I still am not giving up on Jafal, but I think he's just being misused at this point. I think he works better when he has a defensive anchor and has a little more freedom to go forward. I think this 3 defensive midfielders doesn't really suit his play style, and I think he also needs someone to link up with. He's not a guy who's going to be the creator, and maybe that's what Chad Ashton had in mind. He's certainly the more offensive of the 2 central midfielders, but then there's the third goal. This one's just kind of I don't know how much you can really blame other than just giving Hani Mukhtar a shot, which you never want to do. Deflection over the top, sneaks under the post.
This is a ball don't lie goal. This is you deserve pain, and I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah. But then suddenly, I will say after that goal, DC came to life. I think there was a sub Donovan Pines in for Julian Gressel, Michael Estrada in for Ola Kamara. Michael Estrada had a better game than Ola Kamara. Certainly holds up the ball well to create the second goal. Leaves it off for your boy, your boy Nigel Robertha. And this was incredibly frustrating because to me it showed, I'm like, look, Chad, we're bad, buddy. You can't just Benny ball this thing through. You need to get this team to figure out some way to get forward. We're not gonna win games, but we can at least look a little better when trying. And I think honestly, you'd play yourself into a better job. Excuse me. By just, going direct. They finally go direct. They generate probably their best chance they've generated in literally probably the last 4 or 5 games. And they get a goal out of it. A nice ball. They Taxi Funtas is able to sort of lose the defense and slots home a nice goal. And it's you kind of think, okay, maybe there is something here. Then Nashville lock it down, and there really wasn't much else after that I can remember based on that. But just another kind of disappointing performance. I think Camardi Smith came on. He was a big nothing burger. Drew Skundrich, everybody's favorite, came on. He was also a nothing burger. Overall, it's just a bad performance. It's kind of where do we go from here? It does seem like Chad Ashton maybe is now thinking he's going to change what he's going to do. I hope he has at least some of that. Their next game will be Monday, July 4th against Orlando. So in Orlando, so should be fun times there. Should be fun times there. John, any other quick thoughts about this game? I kind of gave the summary. It was just kind of an awful bad performance.
Yeah, no. There's you gotta go through it. You gotta analyze like we have, but it's just at the end of the day, it's an unentertaining product right now. It is a game in which you'll be like, I kind of want to look at my phone right now while I'm here. Like, I want to get on Twitter instead of watch this game because it's poor. Just for context about the type of chances that Nashville had for whatever you think about XG, for the total, the game, Nashville had 0.87 to DC United's 0.74. Nashville had one more shot than DC United. And they had more, and DC United had 58% of the ball. Yet, the score is what the score is. So, like, it's just, I'm glad that Chad did not get on the horn and be like, listen, we had the ball almost 60% of the time. We had about as many shots as they did, trying to find the silver lining of it. He did not. He basically was like, everything is bad. I'm bad. The team is bad. Nothing's working. We need to do something different. People were mad at him for saying that because he's the coach, but like, you're limited somewhat. He took the blame as much as he could take it. He said, like, the tactics were not good enough. I'm going to have to change things because we can't continue on going this way. Like, I thought that was as good of a mea culpa as you're going to get, unless he wanted to be like, and also the players are garbage and I can't believe I don't have any midfielders available. Like, where are these players? Even though it's not, what are you going to do? COVID took all their Loudon players and it's not the window yet. So here we are.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there are some more. I think you need to bring in some more players.
Bodies.
Midfield.
Even just bodies at this point.
I think Martin Rodriguez might help a little bit. We'll see how that goes.
He probably did not anticipate ever coming into a team and being so immediately needed as this. We talked about it last week. Maybe Lucy Rushton's right, and these players love being put into a rebuild. Martine, I believe, with an accente sobre the I at the end. Buddy, you're about to become very essential. You might be an every game starter, but we'll see quickly.
To defend Lucy, I think she was trying to say, look, when you're recruiting players and you're saying, look, you're an incredibly talented player, and right now we need you here because you're going to be the most important player, is going to be a part of this thing we're building for the next 3 years, and we're going, all of that. I think there are some players who would find that attractive. Is like, hey, I'm not coming in and I'm gonna have to fight for my spot between like the 3 other center attacking midfielders they bought this window. Like, I'm literally the guy. So
I think if you're a talented player coming into DC United, you're the guy. Like, it is implied that you were the guy. I think the challenge is, hey, you're coming in. We don't have our coach yet. We have no idea who that is yet. They could have an entirely different style of play. We would like it to be around you, but no promises. Come and see us.
I think it depends. I think it depends on what age you are. I think if you're in your 30s, yeah, that's probably not very attractive. Like, no, I'll just go continue. Give me a team that's ready to rock and roll, and I'm maybe like the sort of last piece. But if you're a guy who's like 23, 24, 25, 26, you're looking at maybe the prime of your career. You're looking for something that could be big. So I think the team have to find a new coach. I think this is. People talk about like, oh, they're expecting Chad to be here. I think at this point, I don't know how you can justify Chad Ashton right now as a coach.
No chance.
Like,
no chance. I will become the Joker if Chad Ashton gets the full-time job. Prepare for me to be the in real life version of the worst person on Twitter about this team. That's what's going to happen if Chad Ashton keeps the job and this team is not magically somehow 5th in the East or 4th in the East somehow at the end of this. Go ahead. No, you go first. I wanted to say about the game one last thing that's kind of funny. I don't know if you noticed, before the game, DC United sends out a tweet in Spanish to La Banda talking about sort of how much they value them. And then the specifics are unclear. I reached out for comment for the team as well to get sort of their side of the perspective, because all we have are basically, even people who are very involved with Labonda don't actually know exactly what happened. But what I will say, caveating all of these things, there were vertical banners that are sort of running the length of the Chico stand, and they were there ahead of time. They were there at the beginning of the game. They were there before the beginning of the game, and around the 40th minute, they go and tell Labonda that these are not okay. These need to come down right now. We got to get rid of these. And Labonda said, "Goodbye, F you. Like, we're just doing our thing here." And according to some people who were there, were saying that like security was really rough with some of the members there as they were trying to get them to leave. They leave. Halftime happens. This is the best part. I got my seatmate Trey took a picture of this. So there's a giant hole in the supporter section right in the middle. There's the literal heart was removed from the Chico stand, and above them on the video board is "Thank you, Labonda. We're honoring fans of the game. Labonda does to go." And there's just no one there. And theoretically, what happened was they realized that was a problem, and they didn't mean to actually have that happen. On Twitter, the comment is that they the team tried to get them to come back, and they refused. And now all of their away game trips are canceled for the rest of the season until they have a conversation. So talk about a mistake. Talk about some miscommunication on the game day perspective. And, Ted and I are on different Discords and whatnot. And there are elements of this group that are just like, we are tired of this. Like we're putting it, we're doing our best to like give you what you want and we are trying to give what we want to give. And all we get is static. And all we get is this kind of stuff. So wild stuff. The picture was the best. I'm glad that he took that, because it was the metaphor was just too strong and too on the nose and too perfect to have even been scripted.
It's really incredible. It's incredible how much this team. What's so like if you could tell the team was like actually like trying to do something to honor a lot of these people who are coming to this game to watch this awful team,
this bad team. Yep.
And it was like probably like they had this whole script of like, oh, we got the national TV. You could tell, by the way, on the stream, like it was just quiet.
Yeah, it was.
They probably put the microphones right there. There was just nothing on the broadcast. It was kind of loud in the beginning, and then suddenly it just stopped. And I thought it was just honestly like the crowd was silent.
Yeah,
the game was silent. And I hope there is. I do hope there is a resolution. I hope somebody out there is like, we need to talk to these people. Who knows if it even work? It'll even work at this point. I think there's a lot that are just like, screw this, I'm done.
Right.
Like, this is over.
Now, say what you will about Hernan. Hernan would be the guy who's saying you need to fix this because he did. That happened last year. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that ongoing situation. If the team comes back to me with what their version of events, I'll share that on either our next episode or Twitter.
I think honestly, in my mind, I wonder if it was an actual team official, or if it was like a security person being overzealous security people saying, "Oh, this has got to come down." Yep. Not going to the team and saying, "Hey, this is a fire hazard." And I would hope some of the team would be like, "Look, it's fine. Like we're not like go stop being."
Or if that is the case, if security says that was they radio the team staff and be like, we think this is not okay, we think it's a fire hazard or whatever, we're going to take care of it. The team, they should have said, okay, hold on, don't go do anything yet, let us go talk to them first and let them know what's going on. They can not like it or they can like it, but then at least it's not just the security team that's, because then they could we shouldn't have allowed this before the game, it's not safe, blah 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 blah. But there's none of that yet, at least as far as we know. Wild stuff.
I think it would have been. I'm not seeing. I guess they're like, oh, you're blocking a fire exit. I'm like, it's a banner. Just go under the banner. Like, I really don't get I don't understand the fire. I'm sure there's something more to it.
I bet that it's not that, because if DC United cared about fire hazards, there'd be more than one exit off of the upper deck. there would be more than one set of stairs.
It's very true. It should have been a thing of, look, let's just, if we get fined, we get fined, like whatever. Like at this point, let's
We got so many questions. We opened the mailbag, and you guys filled it. So thank you as always to our awesome Twitter and listeners.
I do want to start with this for a question from RJ Olson. Will Chad Ashton make it to the end of the season as manager?
Yep.
You think you 100%?
Yep. No matter what.
I think there is if this keeps going bad, if this team just keeps being awful, and there is somebody out there that maybe they are talking to or they have talked to, and they said, you know what, it's time to pull the trigger here. Let's make the signing. I think it's going to depend on who they have. If they have no one else out there, then yeah, I think he gets to the end of the year and they regroup. But I think if there is somebody that they've started talking to or they've maybe reached out to at this point, I don't think it would be the stupidest thing in the world to start maybe looking to reach out and to find somebody.
This team will not pay 3 head coaches in the year 2022. They will not do it. They'll owe all those coaches money.
Fair enough.
I'll be shocked.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's. I don't think you're paying. I don't think you're paying, even with the increase that you gave Chad. I don't think you're paying him enough that it would really matter. So.
It's not a big number, and you're right. Now I think it's important too. Like, have they identified who they want for 2023? Like, clearly we all know that some degree of this was lip service. As far as the Chad is our guy, he's going to be the guy. Blah blah blah. That was like we had to make this move right this second. He's here. There aren't a lot of good coaching options available. We want to take our time, whatever. Do you think they have sort of narrowed that field down already, and they're already interviewing people?
Here's what I think they are. I think they're starting to build a list. If you're starting to build a list, there's a coach. I think the Union Omaha coach who just led his team to a quarterfinal result in the Open Cup. I don't know his name offhand, and also won the USL League One championship. Has apparently said he is not coming back next year. So I don't know. I don't know about that, but that would be certainly an interesting signing if they brought him in.
That's a profile. Go ahead, Ted. Sorry.
Yeah. Here's what I could see. I could see them also saying, "Look, we need to give the fans something. We have this guy. We want to hire him. We announce him in September, October when this team is out of the playoffs. That hey, here's the new coach. He's going to be here in the beginning of 2023. I could see something like that happening. I hope we don't get into another situation that we had with Hernan, where it was like literally we headed into the freaking draft without a coaching hire. We had the coaching hire literally the week before. I don't think you want a repeat of that situation. Could be wrong though, but I think they're interviewing. They have to be, in my opinion, they have to be interviewing candidates or starting to look at candidates.
I think there is something to that USL League conquering coach as the profile of a coach they'd want. They're not going to want a strong personality that's going to demand things. They've done that. They don't like that. And I don't think they're going to want a retread that's failed at the MLS level already. And they don't have a team that's sort of top heavy with a lot. I mean, yet maybe I don't know if they're going to sign for the other DP spots, but they don't have like player power issues of like, Gareth Bale coming here is not going to come coach for a lower league side promoted coach. Yeah. That's not what he's going to want. So this is a team where that kind of thing could work. And I think I think we should keep our eyes peeled for that being sort of the way they go, rather than the Chris Armas route, rather than sort of the MLS retread is like, all right, well, and that also they're cheap, they're easy to fire, they're not going to rock the boat, and maybe you'll catch some lightning in a bottle with some new ideas or motivational tactics that haven't worked in the past. I think that's a good shout.
You find a Caleb Porter basically is what you're looking for.
Yeah, college coach or USL League One maybe. I like it.
Yes. Pat McGill asks, when things are all wrong as a team, how do you properly evaluate individual players?
Good damn question, Pat. That's a struggle, and I think we've seen it play out. You and I think.
Yeah.
Well, let's not name. We don't need to say who, but what's Julian Gressel drawing a lot of fire, drawing a lot of like individual targeting for how bad he's playing, and I really
don't think he is one player I do not think has been that bad. I really don't think he's been that bad.
The numbers don't bear it out. I mean, the problem is he was so good last year, like you pointed out. That's really the nature of this thing. And as you also pointed out, the offense is structured to run solely out of his side. The fact that he's the one that's crossing the ball all the time, they're not great. His crosses have not been as good as last year, and they've not been finding targets, and goals have not been flowing in by Ola Kamara as they have had in the past. But the lack of other options make him more vulnerable and less effective. So that's not really his fault. It's very hard to evaluate players in this context when there's so few bright spots. Jafal is a player that Ted likes a lot. That's a bright spot. Jackson Hopkins in very, very limited time has shown sort of the young players, desire to try stuff and not really get over intimidated by the moment. I think Donovan Pines has had a very good season so far, and in somewhat limited time, he has so far starched the one big mistake for a goal out of his game. Knock on wood. Yeah. Also, he's not starting every game, so like chances are less. But he has improved. I am much more comfortable with him than I would have been in the past. Taxi obviously is a unmitigated. He is accumulating stats on his own. I think it's 6 goals in 9 games. Is that the stat?
Yep.
That's great, right? Other than that, it's hard to really look at this sort of blob that doesn't have an identity and doesn't have effective tactics and really draw too many conclusions about individual players.
I think what you're seeing is this is a team now that is heading into. They're going to get a chance. This is going to be, I think, an actual proper rebuild we are going to see next season. They really haven't had since 2014, and that was honestly a pretty good season. Maybe 2017, 2018. We'll say I'll put that in there, but those always follow good seasons. I want to say to people like, oh, this team's never going to be good. I'm like, I don't know if they'll ever be like consistently good. They're going to have I would put some pretty good money on them having a bounce back season next year. I don't think it'll be to the top of the table, but I could absolutely see them. I think there is core pieces there that if you find the right talent, like you did in 2014, like you did in 2018, you can put together a good squad. And you can go and you can do things right. Alberto DCU says, how would you change the current midfield 3 that Chad has set up? Take it, burn it, throw it away. Never speak of it again. Honestly, at this point, man, like just that lineup he threw out. And I talked about this earlier. I think you need Danny Nahar higher up the field.
Even though it's going to break him again.
I don't know how much, like, how does it not break him to have him at central defense anymore? I don't buy into that, I guess.
The miles that he runs are lessened. It doesn't seem like it because he dribbles the ball a lot, but if you look at his miles traveled numbers, they are lower. Like it's less repeated sprints, and it's less sort of vulnerability to being fouled in the way that he has been when he's further up the field.
I think you're going to have to limit his minutes, obviously, but I think getting him higher up the field, maybe you bring in a more defensive midfield where he doesn't have to check back as much, and you can get a guy like Knaus or Durkin that can just slot back into his sort of left wing back position. I just think this team just needs him. When they got him higher up the field, they looked a lot better. And at this point, maybe you figure out a way to manage his minutes. Maybe he plays every other game. I just think it's more effective than where he is right now. Having him in defensive center defense is not working as well as it used to because quite literally there are very few. He is one of the other very few options this team has.
I would set it up as Knaus. This is assuming health, no more COVID and no more national duty. Knaus, Hopkins, and Cudi Pietro. I'd sort of invert it from a standpoint of like what you're hoping to get out of those 3 players. Or if you're going to put Jafal out there, you can't have both Knaus and Durkin. So you got to make your choice there. Those 3 players should not, I think, be on the field at the same time again. They're I think Durkin and Jafal have somewhat of a duplicative talent, like some of the same things they bring to the table. And then also we have Moses Nyman, thank goodness. Finally, I believe in full training this week. I don't know if he'll be ready to play yet.
He brings a similar skill set to Durkin, though. So
for sure, yeah. No, you have a bad shopping list here. You have good players that can't be together. So that they're gonna have to figure that out for sure. Like in the past, you had Knaus and Moreno as a good pairing. They did similar things, but Knaus was able to go more forward because Moreno was never doing that. He was set in his role. That is a big problem from a coaching perspective when everybody's healthy to figure out, like, all right, we've got to really be creative formationally to get these players in. And maybe we just need to get, like you were saying, 3 up front. We got to figure something else out to sort of thin this out, because these players are all young. They all need minutes, aside from Knaus. They are all young, and we've got to figure it out. But I think that's what I would Cudi Pietro, Hopkins, and Knaus, or Knaus, Durkin, and Hopkins.
And honestly, based on the fact that the goal came from Nigel Robertha, I think he gets to start. I think my front 3 right now is Taxi, Nigel Robertha, and either Estrada or Kamara. I think you reward the fact that the one good offensive play you came from Estrada, Nigel Robertha,
why not?
And Taxi. So I think you start them up front. It allows, it gives Taxi, I think, some outlets that he can look for. I think it allows, maybe you can shift who drops in. Maybe, if there's a hold-up play, you have Estrada drop in, and he can kind of find outlets to either Taxi or to Robertha. If there's more of a interplay with the midfield, maybe you bring Taxi back, push Estrada up. I think it might give DC a little bit of a different look that might throw some teams for a look. I think that's what you do. I think you need to return to the sort of 3 front line. At least generate some, even if it costs us a goal. We're already bad enough on defense. Right now, the best thing this team can do defensively is to keep the ball away from the defensive side of the field as much as they can. And I think you only do that if you have a 3-man front line to try to generate some offense. It might not work every game, but it's certainly, I think, going to be better than what we're seeing. Cavalier Max, a.k.a. my dad, John Meyer, says, DC United management said this is a playoff caliber team with a world-class coach. Obviously, both judgments can be wrong, but which one do you think is the most in error and why? And I think it's honestly Chad Ashton is
the coach.
There is a probably a universe or alternate reality where this team actually is sitting quite comfortably into the playoffs. Maybe, I don't know, Losada listened to people and that's what changed. I mean, this lineup is not completely devoid of talent. And I think with anything in MLS, it's razor thin margin sometimes between being really good and really bad. It's not as drastic as it used to be, but it's still there. Decent.
Playoff caliber team is not a honorific in a team in a league where so many teams make the playoffs. That is a low bar, and this team does not meet it. However, that is more possible than assuming that Chad Ashton is in fact going to be a coach you want to keep.
If there were certain players that were hitting also, if Julian Gressel was on a tear, if Nigel Robertha was showing some of the promise of what his salary was, if Camardi Smith was a great draft pick, if Nigel Jafal suddenly grew throughout each game. I mean, there was a definite ceiling where you could see this team maybe eclipsing that playoff spot. That's probably the maximum amount of what we'd see from this team. Arthur Lampros says, all the talk of finding offensive mid or striker or any talk of defenders, that seems like the real issue right now. I think, honestly, this team has probably so much salary sunk right now into defenders. You talk about Ain Hardest got a new contract, $350,000. Birnbaum's on probably his last contract, and I'm pretty sure it's close to TAM level. You have Bill Hamid making basically the max amount of salary he can be before being TAM level. You have Brendan Hines, you just paid, probably not make it as much as Birnbaum, but certainly there.
Nope, you definitely not.
But you have a lot of players. Those, particularly, I think Birnbaum is the key one here. I think this team right now kind of knows what they are. I think, again, they're not completely mathematically eliminated. I think they know the biggest hole they have to fill is right now. I think and where they should be focused on is that we got to make sure whatever designated player we sign next has to be nailed, because nailing that can maybe get you into the playoffs. And I think that is going to come from the offensive side of the game. It's the way MLS works. There's very, very few defensive players that get designated player contracts. Literally, the biggest story this year probably is the fact that Walker Zimmerman got a designated player contract as a defender. That has also thrown the market completely out of whack as far as trying to sign a player. A lot of people have talked about that. So
I think that also makes these players maybe more valuable in the trade market.
Yeah.
So I think there's nothing wrong with saying any of these players are available for trade. Any of these defenders. Anybody you want, we can have a conversation. I think Donovan Pines would be someone they go after as far as like someone with a bit more potential, and maybe good coaching gets him there. But I think there's value. Arthur asking this question, there have been a lot more individual mistakes, and this last game sort of throwing that a little bit into sharper contrast. But there have been those, and not by Donovan Pines for a season for once. But yeah, I would I don't know if that's correct on Birnbaum. It might be he might be coming out of contract. I would be open on depending on return.
Yeah.
I'd be open depending on return for any of these players.
Yeah.
None of them are blowing me away.
I will say I think Birnbaum might be like on 1 year and like an option year or something. I forget like when his contract. I know when I played I briefly played a save with DC United at Football Manager, like his contract was coming up and I had to like either re-sign him or not re-sign him, and I re-signed him in the game. So I don't know where and that was beginning of 2021. I'll have to remember when his contract was. I'm not exactly sure, but I thought I remember seeing it might be coming up this year. This may be like an option year he's coming into. I could see the team possibly, if they have another year of his contract, I could see him being some pretty good trade bait, or a guy you leave unprotected on your expansion draft. Because if I'm a team like St. Louis looking for a reasonably inexpensive, experienced MLS center back, Steve Birnbaum's right there. Oh, he played in California, didn't he? I'm trying to remember where he played. I was like, did he play like out in like the
UCal Berkeley?
UCal Berkeley. Okay, I thought maybe he played out in the Midwest, but yeah. So
I think that's right.
Not the homecoming there. Let's talk. We got J Napoleon P, I think is what that is. What happened to Birnbaum's offensive headers? More Birnbaum talk. They seem to sail or go over the crossbar just because he doesn't jump as high as he's used to. And is now hitting the ball lower on the ball, or is it just blind luck? I think Birnbaum has he is the one player I think that has regressed the most. I think Hamid's regression has been more gradual. I think for me with Birnbaum, it's very much been sort of falling off a cliff. Maybe that changes, I'm not sure, but he does not look like the same player. Maybe he's still dealing with the issue that has plagued him his whole career, is that he has never been able to really step up and be that kind of vocal sort of defensive organizer. When Brilliant clearly was losing steps, he still had an important part because he had an ability very much to kind of organize the defense. And you could see it. And players, he would kind of like place players in positions and sort of be that guy who could be in the right spot. And Birnbaum's always had the physical prowess. He's just never had the ability to sort of the soccer IQ or the ability to organize. And I'm sure he would completely reject that notion. But I think it's pretty clear now he is starting to lose his steps. His physical prowess isn't there. And we're seeing the results in the team, and he just doesn't look good. I think he's been the worst. If I had to highlight the worst offender, I'm circling his name at this point.
And folks can probably calm down. He's got 8 goals in his entire career in 173 league matches. And the most he's ever scored in one season was 3, and that was in his 3rd season in 2016. He's had 2 twice and then 1. So I would agree it's unfortunate that he seems to get his number called a lot on those corners, and he gets up and he has a bad GPS on where it goes. I think concussion could be parts of it. I think ankle injuries over time could be part of it. This is not a huge problem. I would say maybe target somebody else on these corners.
By the way, this is the last year of his contract. He was signed in 2020 to a 3-year contract extension. He will now be at the club until 2023. I would put some good money on him not being around next year.
If he wants to make his contract, he's not going to be around. If he wants to make that big number, if he wants to reduce it and stay home where he's been his whole career, I think you do that. That's fine. You make him your new Brillant.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know. I think there could also be. I think there would still be a potential market for him.
Sure.
On say an expansion team that is, flush with general allocation money. I would put some money on him going to St. Louis. I think that would be. You would look at that as a solid pickup. Even if you have some other options, it's sort of like a rotational depth option for him. And I would say he would probably make a lot more money going to those teams than he would, because DC would just be trying to.
He'd start for
clear
St.
salary.
Louis. He'd start.
Yeah. All right. Were there any other questions?
Yeah, there's definitely more.
I think I went through them all. Pretty sure that's it.
Who do you think United's... Did we say who we thought United's best defender was?
I think we talked about it a little bit, but yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, I think it's been... You're probably going to say Donovan Pines just because he hasn't made many mistakes. I will say this game, I thought the best defender in this awful, terrible game was Brendan Hines-Ike, and I think he has been probably the most consistent defender of the three out there. I think that's including... I mean, obviously, Eddie Nahar is out there. There's different roles. Yep. When we talk about central defender, there's different roles. What Brendan Hines-Ike is asked to do is not what Eddie Nahar is asked to do. And I think if we're talking pure just defender, central defender, for me, it's been Brendan Hines-Ike. I'm happy to have him back next year with some better surrounding, with some better defenders to surround him. Yeah,
I guess I'll go with that. I wouldn't.
It's hard because there hasn't really been anybody good, but I mean, he's been the better. He's the one player I'm excited to have back, other than I guess Donovan Pines.
Brad Smith bums me out.
Yeah.
He was expensive, and he's on from a acquisition perspective. He was very expensive. He was half of what we got for Paul Arriola leaving. And I've not been super impressed. I don't know if he's better in less of an attacking role. Probably not. I just don't know. Where he fits in with his team going forward, particularly if a new coach is like, all right, the wingbacks thing is cool, but we're not going to do that anymore. That's done now. So yeah, I guess Brendan Hines-Ike, I just for lack of better options, I think. Donovan Pines hasn't played enough for me to give him that. Similar to Nahar. Nahar's been injured, and Pines just hasn't really played that much, so.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at what his contract situation is. I wonder if he was coming up on it. I mean, he might be coming up on it.
He just signed. Hines-Ike just signed. That was the end of this year.
No. Sorry, I'm talking Brad Smith. Because I know we got him for a trade. I'm not sure what his contract situation is.
Maybe it's expiring next year.
You can tell. Yeah, it might be. I think if you wanted to get top value for him, this might have been the last year that Seattle could have done that. We'll come back to that one. I'll look up. It wasn't as easy to find. As far as I don't know if they renegotiated his contract or who knows. Okay. All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode of United 96 here on the RFK Refugees Podcast Network. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back next week, hopefully completely 100% COVID-free on my side, hopefully less of a cough. Hopefully I'm able to speak a little bit more without coughing. I tried my best to lower my microphone.
It gives you gravitas. It's a podcast verite. We're doing our best out here trying to breathe through COVID.
Yeah, we actually went an hour. It's like an old school show talking. God, this is like an old school show talking soccer. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Vamos.